You don't understand Ayanokoji. Most people see him as a heartless genius, a manipulator who views everyone around him as nothing but tools. But I think that's only half the story. Not because people miss details, but because the anime itself encourages that interpretation. If you look deeper into his actions and thoughts, a completely different picture starts to emerge. Ayanokoji isn't trying to prove he's above everyone, or showcase his abilities for recognition. He's trying to understand what it means to be human. And when you follow his progression throughout the series, you begin to see that many of his actions aren't driven by superiority, but by a desire to experience the things that he was never allowed to have. That's what this video is going to talk about. When you watch Classroom of the Elite, you may or may not notice how aware Ayanokoji is of his surroundings. The anime sometimes cuts his inner thoughts for runtime, but even then his thoughts are usually about his perception of his immediate surroundings, and most importantly, the actions of the people around him. But why? We see him constantly just observing people in the background, just watching things unfold without trying to get involved. A sharp contrast to someone like Koenji. Both Ayanokoji and Koenji are physically capable and academically gifted. And yet we see Koenji dismiss people the entire show. He never seems to have any goals, he just makes it a point to ignore the class and gets by doing the least, despite his talent. He's a total recluse, like Ayanokoji, but he doesn't seem bothered by it in the least. Ayanokoji, however, does the opposite. Although his talents exceed Koenji's, his mindset is fundamentally different. Rather than dismissing people, he carefully observes them. Why would someone who supposedly doesn't care about people spend so much time observing them? It's because of Ayanokoji's childhood, or the lack thereof. He spent his entire childhood in the White Room as a part of an experiment, and never had any real friends, classmates, or real familial ties, or much of anything in terms of human relationships. The only thing that mattered back then was winning. It was everything. The White Room succeeded in creating the perfect mastermind, but it failed to produce a normal human being. If the White Room's definition of the perfect human involves suppressing emotions, then they succeeded. But to be human is to have emotions, and that's where their contradiction lies. A normal teenager learns things naturally. Ayanokoji constantly watches social interactions. He studies friendship dynamics, observes how people deal with conflict, and overall studies Class D's dynamics. He doesn't do this out of malice though. He isn't necessarily trying to find weaknesses to exploit or harm people. He just observes out of curiosity, because the White Room deprived him of healthy human relationships. His academic ability is perfect, but when it comes to people skills, he just can't deliver the same results. That's why we see him constantly observing people, to learn the things he didn't get the chance to, all in hopes of trying to live a somewhat normal life, even if it is temporary. Because unlike everyone else around him, he didn't get the chance to grow up around other people. The school matters to him. We all know very well how Ayanokoji could easily dominate the school if he wanted to. He has the physical prowess and the academic genius to rise above everyone else. And yet, he chooses not to. Because he doesn't want to draw attention to himself. The White Room was all about winning, and he was the sole masterpiece that came out of it. He says how ever since coming to that school, he hasn't faced a problem he couldn't handle. He has no need to prove himself for any reason to anyone. The White Room already validated him enough by referring to him as their greatest masterpiece. In his eyes, he's already won. The school is not a competition that he feels the need to overcome, but to experience. Because rather than trying to prove something, he's trying desperately to protect something else. And that's his normal life. He deliberately avoids leadership positions in the earlier episodes, does the most to hide his abilities, and overall just tries to avoid any drama. But why? It's because he values the quintessential high school experience. He's well aware that after graduation, he'll inevitably have to return to the White Room. So these fleeting 3 years in high school are all the freedom he'll ever get to experience. And that's why he refuses to let that go. We see how in every major special exam, Ayanokoji's sole objective is to avoid expulsion. He said how he chose not to help Class D in the beginning, because it wasn't a priority to him. The only time we ever actually see him put in some effort is when the threat of being expelled looms over his head. Expulsion isn't just going to lower his class's reputation and his own. It represents losing the only life he'll ever get. There is no second chance at this. We see recently in Season 4, where he chooses to ace the math exam as a way to show everyone he means business. And he says as much. He can't afford to mess around, because there's too many uncertainties within the exam for him to be fully confident. He has no idea who the White Room student could be, so he has to stay on his toes, all to protect his normal life. A normal teenager takes freedom for granted. We see how much he values a normal experience, with how he acts in the classroom. He doesn't try to fit into any archetype, like the jock or the nerd or the most popular. He just chooses to be himself. We see him help Horikita break out of her shell, and he has his own friend group separate from all the class's drama, and even starts dating Kei. He constantly puts himself in situations he doesn't fully understand emotionally. This keeps him intelligent and competent, but socially inexperienced. The best example of this is his relationship with Kei. Most people look at it and immediately call it manipulation, and to an extent they're not wrong. Part of the relationship did start for practical reasons, but that isn't the full picture. The more interesting question is why he continues participating at all. If all he cared about was efficiency, there would be no reason to continue dating her, no reason to learn how relationships work, and no reason to maintain that connection beyond its usefulness. Instead, we see him awkwardly trying to navigate experiences that most teenagers learn naturally. He literally Googles what gift to buy a girl and chooses the first thing that comes up, because he has no frame or reference. He tries to be thoughtful, but because he's never had real connections before, he's clumsy with it. In a strange way, Ayanokoji starts dating someone before he fully understands what a relationship is supposed to mean. He's learning through experience, not because he's good at it, but because it's something the White Room never gave him the chance to learn. A normal teenager entering a relationship. People think he's just being manipulative and just using the people around him. But you have to question why he participates at all. He'll tutor the less academically inclined students of Class D, or he'll put his athleticism to use in the sports day, but why? He does all this because it's the experience of a normal high school life that he craves. Someone like Koenji would never do this. Not because he can't, but because he doesn't care to experience it. If all that mattered to him was winning, he would just brush people off like Koenji and focus all his effort on rising through the classes. But his actions show he clearly does not care about all that, and he actively does the opposite. At the end of the day, he wasn't trying to be special or dominate the school with his abilities. Ayanokoji spends the entire series trying to learn the things that everyone else learned without even realizing it. A normal teenager learns social skills naturally. A normal teenager takes freedom for granted. And a normal teenager enters relationships without needing to study them. Ayanokoji had none of those things. That's why I think so many people misunderstand him. They focus on the manipulation, the intelligence, and the victories, but those were never the things he lacked. He never lacked the ability to win. The White Room taught him how to win, but now he's just trying to learn how to live.